How are you? You've just heard two speakers, and I wonder if, like me, you'd find it helpful just to stand up and take a little mini stretch break. Would that be helpful? I feel like we've been sat down for a long time, right? Yeah. And why don't you take a nice deep breath if you haven't already? And when you feel ready, you can say hello to the person behind you and then maybe take a seat. Okay. Oh, hello. Yeah, this is me. My name. You can call me Sam. And what you probably need to know about me is a tiny bit about my background. I started off as an industrial chemist. Naturally, I progressed into markets and banking. And these days, I work as a bit of an alchemist. What does that mean? Well, what I discovered is I'm very, very curious about how things work. And I've been fascinated by humans and humans' behavior from probably the time I could first read. And what I discovered in both science and particularly in banking, and these are some of the photos from me working with banking clients, is that it doesn't matter how difficult, how impossible, how complicated, how heavily regulated it is the thing that we have to do. Whether we can do that or not is all in our human collaboration. And so these days I call myself a bit of a human software developer, because the thing with AI, and we say AI, but there are many different types of AI, but you know, there are billions and billions of pounds being ploughed into the development of AI. You know this already, right? What does that mean? I had lunch with a friend of mine. He's like, yes, we're working now on the, really starting to dig into the executive function. Well, I'm interested in neuroscience, right? Executive function, we have that. You know, this is like our ability to self-regulate, our ability to choose what we focus on, imagination. You know, and you think about our human software, it's our communication skills. It is our ability to think creatively, problem solve, logically structure an argument. You know, now how many of you, just raise your hands, have had the opportunity or have taken the time to develop yourself in any of these ways in the last, say, 2 to 5 years? Yeah. And just look, keep your hands up and just look around the room. And I see you at the back. Okay. So this is the first thing that I want you to take away from today, is that it's no good being scared of AI and thinking we're better than AI, or AI is not very clever and isn't that one stupid, because if billions and billions of pounds are being sent sending AI to school, you should be spending at least an hour or two a week developing yourself, okay? Why did that come across like school teacher? Anyway, that's why I'm a human software developer, because in the environments I work in, I work through a couple of different lenses. I work in organizational transformation, all the stuff you were talking about, Paul, you know, that organizational inertia, helping big and small organizations pivot to a more product-based culture so they understand what value it is that they're offering to their clients and how they can organize around that and be more innovative, be more creative, collaborate better. But because I'm so fascinated in human software and because I realize that it's all based on relationships, I also do couples therapy, which I absolutely love, and I also have a radio show. So, but essentially, for all those fancy alchemy words, I'm basically like a coach, I guess. And I have to tell you that the bottom dropped out, because I also work as a consultant, and actually the bottom dropped out of that market for me massively over the last, not 6 months, the last 6 months has been great, but about the 18 months to 2 years before that went like this. All of a sudden, a lot of those companies were no longer doing vision, value, strategy sessions. They weren't investing in their people. They were trying to figure out headcount cutting of head count cuts, can't even say it, and trying to figure out, this existential threat of AI, I guess. And then I saw some kind of article that said, coaching, there's this great new AI and it's had 2 million coaching conversations in the last 2 years. I looked at my coaching log, I was like, fuck, oh my God, coaching is dead. What on earth? I've pivoted into a career that's dead already. But then I realized that if I'm not that kind of person, I'm not that kind of coach, I don't provide that sort of service, that if you can put into ChatGPT and get the answer you want, that isn't what I do. And what I fundamentally do is I help people remember how powerful they are, and I help connect them back into their power. So thank God I did not have to retrain as a plumber, which is what I was thinking about for a while, because that is not my jam. So it doesn't matter who stands up here and says, we know what the IST industry will look like in 5 years, because the landscape is changing so dramatically. If I put anything in my slides that was about AI last week, it would probably be out of date today or next week. So what I'd love you to do is scan that QR code, because we're going to get interactive in this session. I thought it'd be fun to do a survey. Okay, so hop onto Slido, my people. And what are you thinking? What are you feeling? I would love to know. What is it like to be standing on this exciting, pivotal moment in our history? And it's just the first question you can answer. There's only 3. I cheaped out. I didn't pay for Slido. Yes, please. Okay, so it's anonymous. So just seeing the responses come through. Oh, emojis, I like it. Okay, 20 respondents, 21. So we can see there's quite a distribution, right, of results. Optimism, less optimism. But quite a lot of good sentiment. I realised I should have done this as a word cloud. I thought I did. I don't know. But nice to see. Okay, so if we flick back to the slides, what we're going to get into today is we're going to talk about our human software and how we can actually harness our power and actually make some kind of change. Because change certainly isn't easy. How many people know this term? VUCA? No, see, if we were in the world of agile transformation people, everybody would be like, yes, we know what VUCA is. And what I would say is just since COVID, the pace of uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity has ramped up massively. And so it's important to really recognize this, because when we are in these VUCA times, we need to respond differently. We can't be we can't plan ahead very clearly because our horizon is so small. So, volatility, everything is changing so quickly. How many people resonate with this? I can't keep up. Yep. Uncertainty. We can't do the 5-year plan anymore because every assumption is risky. Complex adaptive, where these things are emergent, where things we think we're going this direction, but then it changes very rapidly. That's when we know we're in this complex adaptive state. And also ambiguity. the thing that I'll say about ambiguity is when we're facing the unknown, how we see things, Anais Nin made a great quote, how we see things is actually how we are. And all of our experience colours how we see things. They're literally like the glasses we put on. So when we're facing the unknown, we have huge power in our diversity, and we need to talk about what sense we're making of something. I'll come back to this a little bit later, but it's recognizing that things are ambiguous, and it's we don't necessarily have a clear perspective. So again, I thought I'd have fun and show you a survey. So this is some research that's been done by a lot of, you can see the attributions, about how does this play out in the workforce? What are we really thinking as leaders and as managers about what I just said? And the stats seem to pretty much bake it. So we understand that agility, the ability to pivot and to collaborate, is critical. But these top three, I've coloured them yellow because these are the ones that we're going to kind of do something about today. So just give me a show of hands if that's interesting. You want to hear about this? Good. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of 101 and get curious about our human software. And I love, Paul, that you said nervous system, because we have one of those too. And there's something happening, and I noticed that there's a brain on here. So what this is showing is called an arousal curve. And this is us bumping along pretty normally, and then something will happen. And on the micro, this is like we get an email from the client, or the client says we're not going to renew your contract. And we get hyped up into this state. And if we stay here in fight or flight too long, we actually go up into freeze. And this is kind of like around burnout, when it gets really significant. But there's also like a bit of a subtlety to what's happening here. And so I want you to play with me so you actually model this. So take your thumb. Okay, this isn't factually correct, but we're going to play, right? But this thumb, if you open your hand, you're going to put it across here. Now you imagine this is where it starts to get a bit made up. But this is like our reptilian brain, okay? This is like all the autonomic breathing, heart rate, all that stuff. Now you can curl your fingers over the top. Again, I know this is made up, but you can think of this like your mammalian brain, okay? Emotions, all that kind of good stuff is here. Now, if you put the other hand over the top and have the fingers resting on the knuckles, this is this bit, okay, the neocortex. This is where all the cool executive functioning stuff lives, okay? So what's happening here is we are in what some people say is a whole brain state. This is our most creative state. But what happens is we get an email. Our kids misbehave. We think about something that annoys us. There's a quote of Trump on the TV. This starts happening. So just do this with your fingers on your knuckles. So this is where the electrical signal with your neocortex starts to turn off, okay? And when we flip our lid, we're banging the table, having an argument. What's happened is this has completely switched off. They've done fMRI scans, and there is no electrical activity in this part of the brain. This is why we say things we regret. This is why we do things we regret. And we've typically lost about 20 to 30 IQ points by doing that. And we can't help it. It just happens, and it happens all the time. So what we want to do is take our power back and figure out how we can keep our zen and stay in this optimal state. And it's pretty tricky, like I said, since COVID, because there has been, even if this doesn't really affect you, just the fact that it's in our culture, that it's somewhere around us. I don't watch the news, I watch the business news, but still, it affects us on a nervous system level, okay? And it kind of puts us somewhere kind of here. And you know that you're here if you're a bit deer in the headlights. Freeze mode, you can, I'm giving you the indicators so you can recognize it. I'm a bit there now. My heart rate is quite fast, okay? My blood pressure's probably up. I don't feel dizzy. I've got wider eyes than normal, okay? I am a bit hyper, you can tell, okay? So I'm doing things like being conscious about my breathing as I'm here to help keep me a little bit zen. But when we get up to the sort of top here, we might notice, and you might hear people saying, or you saying, I feel really stuck. You know, I just don't know what the next step is. This is a good signal because we need to take care of ourselves. The other one that I see a lot is not the cat, but the mouse. It happens in organisations. We flip and we're up in sort of this zone. We're a bit numb. We're a bit exhausted. A lot of the very senior leaders that I coach, they are teetering on the edge of burnout, and they're telling me they can't think straight. They keep forgetting things. This is executive functioning, right? So when you have no words, when it all feels like it's too much, this is what's actually happening under the hood. So what's most important is how we come back down this curve, and you know all these things. It's love. It's when we get stressed, we disconnect ourselves from people. We tend to isolate. We think we just need to sit here working and get it all done. We know that doesn't help. Move in our body. This is why I got you to stand up first, because we spend too much time sitting like this, and it literally shrinks our ability to think clearly. Getting out in nature. Also, a key point about how our brain works, we have entered a state where we are in constant consumption mode. So we're listening to podcasts all the time. We might go out for a walk in the sunshine, but we're listening to a podcast, okay? Think about how you breathe. You breathe in, you breathe out. There's a natural pause. Think about how you eat. You eat. Probably you stop, you digest it, then you poop it out. Your brain is exactly the same, but somehow we have metaphorically ended up eating. Try do it. Breathe in. Keep breathing in. Keep breathing in. Keep breathing in. You can't. You go pop. Okay, you're doing that to your brain. So we have to give ourselves quiet time, and that's why you have your best ideas in the shower. And don't forget, it's all underpinned by food, just like AI, rubbish in, rubbish thinking. So, sorry, before I just jump off there, I'd just like you to reflect, and you can shout out a couple in the room. Which one of these do you realise you're neglecting that you need to lean into? Quiet. Anyone else? Quiet too. Yeah. 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 It's so fun, isn't it? Like, you never realised that the commute was a benefit because it got you up, moving out of the house among other people. It's really hard working from home. And just out of interest, I meant to ask this at the beginning, I forgot. Quick show of hands, who is like a solopreneur? Who works like on their own? Yeah, quite a few of you, maybe a third. How many of you like run a business, have a team of people? Cool, thank you. And how many are like in big business, big company? Some, yeah, thank you. It's just helpful to know. Okay, so we're going to do something now. That the next section mostly, or the rest of this, is all about helping. So it's helping you realise things. So again, question. When you've got teams and you've got maybe even organisation, If you're a solopreneur, you might think about how you collaborate. But under normal working conditions, certainty, doing the same thing all of the time, having risk, big consequences of what you're doing. I mean, chaos, I think we all know what that is. No priorities, everything's urgent, it's all got to be done all of the time, now. Or vagueness, what are we doing? What are we trying to solve? Which do you find the most stressful? Okay, so quick show of hands, certainty, doing the same thing over and over? Yeah, I didn't think there'd be many of those in the room. Okay. Okay, risk. Ooh, some people like risk. Oh, find it stressful. Yeah. What about vagueness? Oh. Yeah. Okay. A lot of people finding vagueness stressful. And what about chaos? Okay. Good to know. Good to know. So this helps you realize, but also under normal working conditions, what would you prefer instead? Okay, so who would like there to be more certainty? Okay. More certainty people, you are the people that bring order to chaos. So you are very good at processes, procedures, stability. You know, organizations, the clues in the title, to organize, that's your superpower. Okay, what about those who like more vagueness? Who wants more vagueness? 1, 2, maybe 3. So the ones who can deal with vagueness, these are the ones who are really good in situations like this, okay? Because they can take the unclear, the fuzzy-wuzzy, and start to make it clear. So if you realise you've got a gap, you can do something about it, right? Who likes more chaos? 1, 2. Again, chaos monkeys. Like if I think about innovation, all right, I work with a lot of large organizations trying to spark innovation, creativity. This is all about this, okay? Process optimization is kind of all about this. So the reason I'm asking you to reflect and think like this, particularly if you run teams, particularly if you're hiring or doing talent development, thinking about what skills you need to require, thinking about over here, right? Because this is the dimension of what helps organizations change. And what we need actually is diversity. And what I mean by that is this diversity of these working preferences. Because what freaks one person out is actually somebody else's yum-yum. You know what I mean? And it's things like ambulance drivers, anyone who works in ER, they love chaos. They love chaos. Okay? I used to work a lot in risk and regulation. A lot of those, the quants that I used to work with, they love to be thinking about risk, but like they hate chaos. So it's realizing that it's horses for courses. Figure out what horses you've got in your stable. Okay, the power is in our diversity because we need to do this thing. Probe, sense, adapt. So what I mean by that is you can't have a procedure for it because you don't know what it is yet. So, and this is where you probably help because working with insight functions and those cool consultancies that try and predict the future, what they're doing is they live up here. They're looking at all the weak signals that are coming from the, from the environment. AI, by the way, the first AI, do you know what year AI was born? Yeah, thankfully just before I was born, in the 50s. Yeah, there's been like 3 big waves of AI. What's happened now is just computers are now cheap enough that they can throw compute power at the problem. So, nothing that comes as a surprise should be a surprise because there'll have been a weak signal for it. So how in your teams as yourself, how are you looking ahead, probing, looking at what the signals are? And you can't do it on your own. You have to talk to other people to try and make sense of it so that you can then adapt. And there's this cycle. Notice, what are you seeing? How can we get curious about it, try and understand it? And then how can we create some experiments that enable us to test out what we're thinking? Because everything we do, it's unlikely that it's going to roll exactly as we think. How many of you have done something thinking it was going to be amazing and it got you exactly the result you wanted, but somehow you felt lacking? Okay? This is how we are as humans. We then need to do this part. This is so often missed. We need to review and adapt and then keep going around the circle. Okay. Well, if you take that approach, you will already start to move the needle on this. Psychological safety. Who knows what that is? Yep. So it means that we're safe to have different opinions. We're safe to speak up and disagree. I love what you said as well, Paul, about come and disagree with me at the end. I love it. This creates an environment of safety. I think as leaders, I certainly remember when I was running a big team. It's scary though, isn't it? I don't want to know how you feel. Because all those feelings, they get in the way. Okay, it's because I thought I had to fix it. But you don't. It's amazing that all of us, most of what we want is just actually to be felt like we're heard and understood. So I'm going to give you a toolkit. You find your own words, but you say something like, thank you for sharing. First of all, you've got to have asked them, made it safe to share their opinions. Thanks for sharing. I'm here for you. How can you support yourself? What might you need from me? This is like super powerful because if you think back to how much fear there is in the system, we have to help our people get back to a whole brain state. This is a really good way to do it. Talk about the fear, talk about what we're worried about. Okay, great. What can we do about it? These are 3 pillars of physically how you can do that, because I realised as I said that, that's actually really hard. So one of the people that on a leadership training program that I worked with was Aldo Kane, who's climbed Everest. He's a commando. He's rowed across the Atlantic. It sounds so good coming from him. It's the same stuff, I say. So shrink the horizon. You can't look at 5 years. In mental health, we might get down to 5 minutes. If you're really struggling to get out of bed, if you're having a really rubbish day, if you're having a really rubbish time, if it's really getting you down, shrink it down to 5 minutes. Get up, brush your teeth, make the bed. And that comes down to controlling the controllables. Can you control the risk of World War III? No is the answer. What can you control? And this thing about using action to create clarity. So when there's a big disaster, you know, or when you're a commando and you're at war and someone freaks out because a bomb's gone off or their colleagues got shot, they will look them in the eye and say, do that action, do that thing, tie that rope. Because when we move into action mode, it actually lowers our inner stress. It gives us something to focus on. So if we've even shrunk the horizon and we're trying to control the controllables, we still need to actually take action. And my biggest tip is don't stare into the abyss, because if you're watching the news and you're finding it terrible how this is happening and that is happening, you will literally push your brain further and further out of performance zone. And I realise this is really easy to do. And one of the ways you can notice if you're doing this is ask yourself, how much time are you spending focusing on bad news? Focusing on the doomsday scenarios? Focusing on what you don't want to happen? If it's anything more than 25%, you're really missing a trick. So just see how you can use your executive function and focus on what you want instead. Okay. So we need to do a little something, an awareness on change fatigue. Who knows anything about change fatigue? Are you feeling it? How many people feel a bit of change fatigue? It's like this constant roller coaster. Yes. So Elizabeth Kubler-Ross had this great change curve. You might have seen this around grief, if anyone has lost anyone. The first thing I'll say about this is it's not linear. We don't go from your left to right. It's a little bit up and down, and we might go there over months, years, minutes. Okay? So just to say, and I know you won't be able to read these little things at the bottom, and you can download the slides, of course, but anything, any change, even if we want it, we will have a little bit of shock. And we'll go through denial. Yeah, we don't have to worry about this. Oh, I tried ChatGPT and it was so rubbish. We then go through frustration, and we will naturally, the depth and how long we stay there, it depends, but we'll feel a bit hopeless. Okay? Once we get hopeless, maybe, hopefully, we've got rock bottom. This is why it's so important to take an action step. Because taking an action step moves us out of stuck, hopeless. And this experiment tends to put us up. Or it might take us up into decisions, into integration, where we've become something different. Does that make sense? Yeah. So on the bottom, we can chunk all these down into, step one is we want to stay in the status quo. We spend a lot of time trying to say that actually nothing really needs to change. We can just stay how we are. We can keep calm and carry on, right? We then move into disruption. Oh no, the fear kicks in. What do you now know to do about handling fear? Right? Talk about it. Get out in the sunshine. Move. Make an experiment. Get into exploration mode so that you can then rebuild. Okay. Useful? Yeah, nodding. All right. So, and I realise why I also put this in, because I really want to just underline how hard it is for so many of us to change. So this is from Dan Sullivan, who's the founder of Strategic Coach. And there are 4 boxes here about making change: commitment, courage, capability, and confidence. And if I was allowed to, I'd have you move into 4 corners of the room. But you can't. And we have 4 minutes left. I wanted you to chat with a colleague. Have a minute. Chat with your colleague if you want. Which of these do you think is required to make the first step of change? Okay, that's a minute. All right, so hands up and votes online. So who thinks commitment is required first? Show of hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-ish. 7. How many people think courage is required first? Oh, almost everyone. Who thinks confidence? Yes, some of you. Thank you. And who thinks capability is needed? Oh my goodness, 3 of you? Is that right? Okay, first. Yeah, first. Okay. So what the research shows us, which you can't fact check because I'm not showing you what it is, but Dan has it. All change starts with a decision. You have to decide, what do you want? Not what is the problem, what is the outcome you want instead? What are you actually going to commit to? And think about the journey it takes to get there. Because to be honest, I want a 6-pack. For a while, I was trying to commit myself to a 6-pack. But actually, the 6-pack is the outcome. Am I committed to eating chicken and broccoli every day for every meal? No. Okay? So think about it. Yes, anyone can do anything, but what's it take to get there? Are you committed to that? Okay? Once you've committed, you're going to need to take a bit of courage, because there wasn't time to put a slide in, but there's a journey from change where you leave the shore of the known, who you are, you move into the fog of WTF, where you're doing all that experimentation, you're having these days where you get overcome by fear, you're using the 5-second horizon to get yourself up out of bed, you're experimenting, you start to, number 3, develop capabilities, go and retrain, develop skills, start to practice, start to try and do use cases using AIs to see how it actually works, so that you can develop skills. Okay, and then you pop out the other side and you only can connect the dots and make sense of it looking back. So know that when you're in the foggy middle. And that's integration. And hopefully by then you'll have developed confidence. But confidence is an outcome. It's an output. It's the result of. And so many people misunderstand and think, oh, I'm not going to do it because I don't feel confident. You're never going to feel confident if you don't do it. Okay. So when you download the slides, you can reflect. You can write it down, because if you write it down, you are far more likely to do it. Top tip, tell someone. Right now, you're really going to do it. Your community. You could maybe all tell each other. Hold yourselves accountable. Support. And this thing about measuring where you objectively are, and also thinking about where you want to be, this is how you can kind of be quite focused on actually making that change. So, bringing it all together, I'm 1 minute over. So hopefully now you can recognise these human responses to uncertainty. I almost put uncertainty equals fear. But you know why I didn't? Because when we looked at those organisational boxes, chaos monkeys love it. For them, uncertainty doesn't equal fear. And that's why it's important to notice that it's all to do with our software. Hopefully now you're tooled to be able to shift. You have to recognise if you're in this fear state and take action. You know how now to create environments where people feel safe and how to support colleagues through the other side of change. So I'd like to ask you, and you can go back into Slido. What are you leaving with today? What's your big takeaway? How do you feel now? What are you thinking about? And of course, crucially, what are you going to do? It's not what you know, it's what you do that counts. So what are you going to do? You can tell us in the feedback. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn and carry on the conversation, you can scan this QR code. And that's me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if this works. Okay. That's right. I think it does work. Thank you. I suppose, could you give a practical advice? Let's say I run a research agency, 100 people. I've got more people that like certainty, less people that like vagueness in my business. I'm saying AI is coming in, right? We've got some fear there. What are the 2 things that I should do to begin with to try to begin the journey of change?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
The first thing I would do is I'd go into YouTube and I would type John Cotter penguins, and I would spend 12 minutes watching a super cool, very easy to understand video about the steps of really leading transformation in uncertainty. And it's fun, it's penguins. Then armed with that knowledge, I would set out my vision. I would make the problem clear. this is what our challenge is, people. And then I'd get my people around and I'd say, tell me about it. What are we thinking about this? What are we feeling? Okay, and then I'd say how much we need people to be pioneers, to venture out into the unknown and to kind of grapple with a bit of uncertainty and try and help us figure it out. And then I would ostentatiously praise them as they started with the green shoots of finding things out. And I would really value learning in the organisation. That's how I'd do it.
Thank you. A question from anyone before we break for coffee? Oh, Jerome.
I have a question. So first, I'm not a good manager. I look at the abyss all the time. I'm that kind of guy. I want certainty, and I'm really puzzled by the two psychopaths that said they wanted more chaos in their professional lives. It's okay in a roller coaster or something like that. But at work, I like things to be, ordained. What's wrong with them or what's wrong with me?
There's nothing wrong with either of you. And what more of a powerful pairing than the two of you collaborating? Because organisations, any business needs both. It goes back to what Phyllis said. You said traditionalists and innovators. Okay, if we don't have stability, we're all over the place. We can't meet commitments, nothing's repeatable. Quality's a problem. Right? If we can't innovate, we get really stale. Right? Everything, the funny thing about change is, it's an illusion because everything is changing all of the time. As a woman in my 50s, sorry to bring this into the room, but this whole thing around yes, menopause kicks us up the arse because we weren't paying attention to ourselves. We were too busy working. Everything is changing all of the time. We just don't notice. So the chaos monkeys help us remember that. Does that help?
Yes and no.
This is good.
The change is outside. The change you can't escape it. The chaos is there, and I feel our role is to bring order. And I'm threatened by somebody that wants more shit, but yes, it helps. I mean, I'm not sure I want to work with you. No. But
if I could just give one more example, and I know you really, really need a break, but this is why companies have things like innovation labs, where they hide them away, in another building somewhere. Okay, but the ones who like chaos is because it's not because it's a destructive force, it's just energy, and they're trying to figure out what could be possible. Think about a chef in a kitchen, right? So they don't need to disrupt the Zen. They just, you need to figure out how you have these forces that, because we don't know, if you don't have the chaos, the unknown of the future, you have to wait for other people to have sorted it out. So you're never going to have early adopter advantage. You're always going to be on the tail of the pack. Now, if that's your strategic decision and that's your choice, you do you. Nothing wrong with that. But I think to compete, and right now it's, we are competing for attention. So it's how do we get that attention? I think we're going to need some kind of innovation to do that. So a really great place to start is to find somebody who's different to you, totally different to you, and have a conversation. Not to try and prove each other right, but just to be curious. What's it like? What do you love about chaos? What does it give you? Oh, yeah. And what do you love about stability? What do you love about everything being the same all the time? Understanding moves us a huge way. Don't know if that helps. Yeah, thanks. I feel like we could have a really good conversation for a long time.
We could go on for a long time, but could we thank Samantha? Thank you very much. Thank you.